Hi, I'm Bob, the Mortgage Coach Mitchell. Thank you very much for tuning in today. This is video number 6 in the series of the step-by-step process to successfully buy a house. Okay, in the very first videos, we talked about how to free up money to be able to save, so that you had some money to work with in buying a house. Then we talked about 4 savings accounts, actually making yourself save the money as opposed to just incorporating that money into a different part of your cash flow. Um, After that, we talked about getting your credit in order. Okay, then after that, we talked about your job income, what you need to do to be able to buy a house, what you need to be able to prove to the underwriter. Then we talked about, I think video 5 was on selecting a lender. This video 6 is on how to select a real estate agent. And that's actually really not the easiest thing in the world to be able to do. So I want to talk to you about some of the places of where people do find the real estate agent that they end up working with. Um, and some steps that you might want to avoid, or that you might want to follow in order to be able to find that real estate agent that you want to work with. Okay. One of the biggest places where people find real estate agents is somebody that they know or a family member. If you were to go down the street and start knocking on doors, I would imagine that in most neighborhoods, by the time you got to the fifth or sixth door, you would find somebody that has a real estate license. Okay. So I'm not a real big fan of working with the Aunt Joes of the world. That's the lady that is basically retired, but she keeps her license in order and she does 2 deals a year. When they fall into her lap, she's not out working the market on a day-to-day basis, but she might have been doing it for 20 years. So every once in a while, even a blind hog can find an acorn. And, one of her nieces will want to buy a house, or one of her nephews will want to buy a house, and all of a sudden she's out showing property again. Not a big fan of those. I would generally be very careful of working with somebody that was a close friend or a family member, because real estate's one of the few transactions where there's so many people that have their fingers in your pie that things can go wrong. If you do end up choosing to go with somebody that's a friend or a family member, make sure that you have a heart-to-heart conversation with them, and discuss the possibility. What happens if something goes wrong? How are you going to maintain our relationship? Okay. I would kind of steer clear of it, but I understand that, if you want to toss your friend or your family member a bone and put a commission in their pocket, and that's admirable. One, before you do that, I'd make sure that the relative or friend knows what the heck they're doing. A lot of real estate agents don't. I'm going to run the risk of pissing a lot of agents off by when I say this, but if you were to take all the real estate agents in the country and put them all on ships and send them to sea, and only half of them were to come back, the market would actually be better served. Okay. There are just way too many real estate agents out there. The way that the pie gets split so many different ways that I think it would be better, and the industry would be more professional if we didn't have if it wasn't quite as easy to get and to keep a real estate license. But that's reality, so it is what it is. Um, the fact, but when you're talking about working with somebody to buy your house, talk to them. Talk to more than one. I'd say select at least 3 to interview. Now you can get referrals from friends and family members, okay, um, and ask them what their experience was. Don't rely on just any one person, because the deal might have gone real easy and slick, and everything was fine and everything was hunky dory. But since it was an easy slick deal, it didn't give the agent might not know what the heck they're doing. Okay. Um, Now, working with somebody that doesn't necessarily know what they're doing, saying a brand new agent, is not necessarily a bad thing either. Just make sure that they have resources available to them, a broker or mentor who's going to help them with the process and is going to be there as a backstop in case something goes wrong. But generally speaking, I don't think you want to be somebody's first transaction. Everybody has to go through that. And and as long as the person and somebody who's brand new might actually be a better fit for you, because they're going to pay a lot more attention to you than somebody else that's carrying 20 or 30 listings, who you give a call to, and maybe 2 or 3 days later you get a return call, or you get a return call from one of their assistants or something. So I'm not a big fan of the super agent either. So, but somewhere in between there, kind of a Goldilocks thing. You want somebody that's got experience, but that isn't so busy that they can't pay you attention. I would interview at least 3, maybe 4 agents. Look at their website, check the referrals, see who you feel best with. Okay. If you meet somebody, like say you go to an open house, again, apply the same set of criteria to anybody you meet. Just because they're happy and friendly and nice and willing to email you some new property listings down the street and everything doesn't mean that they know what they're doing. Okay, so be careful, talk to them, check their references, and then select somebody that you feel comfortable with. Now, we will talk about buyer's agency a little bit here. Okay, generally speaking, and it varies state to state, but in most states, if you do not select buyer's agency, and you're going to have a chance that the person is not going to have your fiduciary needs foremost in their mind. Okay, if they're working as a sub agent of the seller's agent, then their fiduciary responsibility is actually to the seller, not to you. So I'm a big fan of buyer's agency and going ahead. Now, the commission will still be paid for by the seller. Okay, but you can have the buyer's agent working for you as a buyer's agent to where they have a fiduciary responsibility to you. That is, they have to keep your interest in mind first and foremost, uh, by entering into a buyer's agency relationship. And I think that's a real strong thing. It's a real good thing to do. Now, before you enter into a buyer's agency with an agency agreement with an agent, make sure that you're very comfortable, because that does contractually obligate you to work with that person. Let's say, for example, you went out and you looked at a for sale by owner and it's the perfect house for you. Okay, but you've signed a buyer's agency agreement with a real estate agent. Well, you need to include them in on the process. And if it's a for sale by owner, they might not want to cooperate with the real estate agent, or they might not want to pay the commission. All right, well, first of all, the commission, the reality of the situation is that you, the buyer, are the one that's paying the real estate commission. It's being funneled through the seller, but generally speaking, the seller is not going to have the money to pay for the commission until they close. You're the one that's coming to the closing table with the loan that's going to provide them with the funds to go ahead and to do that. So anyway, be careful on who you pick. Make sure that they have experience. At least if they don't have a tremendous amount of experience, make sure that they have somebody in their corner as a backup that's supporting them, that's teaching them the business, that's mentoring them. Everybody's got to go through it, so don't necessarily hold that against them. The super agent, again, I won't necessarily rule out working with the super agent, but recognize that you're probably going to be dealing with assistants more than with that actual agent. That doesn't mean some of the assistants aren't very, very, very good at what they do, but be aware of it. I think there's a sweet spot somewhere in between those two. If you have any other questions about selecting a real estate agent, definitely feel free to reach out to me in the comments. If you know somebody who's is thinking about going through the process of buying a house, definitely let them know about this series. I'm Bob, the Mortgage Coach Mitchell. Now let's put you into a house.